please welcome onto stage Miles Celic.
Good afternoon, and Rupert, thank you very much for that very generous introduction, very much appreciated, not least because it is a real pleasure to be back at the Guernsey Funds Forum, which I'm sure will, as it does every year, generate another great series of thought-provoking discussions. It's also great to be back with so many friends and colleagues from Guernsey, and only shortly after my visit to the island earlier this year, which, as always, was both hugely enjoyable and enormously informative. Today, I'd like to explore a few core themes: the industry's role in driving growth, the value of boosting UK competitiveness, and how we can better adapt to what is an evolving regulatory environment, not just within the British family of financial centres, but globally. In a general election year where the battleground for the major parties is on economic stability, resilience, and growth, collectively, our industry could not have a more important role to play. So let's first take the role that we have in driving economic growth. The UK-based financial and related professional services industry is truly a national asset. As Rupert pointed out, 2/3 of its more than 2.4 million jobs are based outside London, and everybody assumes that those are just back office roles. The reality is that the UK is the most successful exporter of financial services anywhere in the world, and nearly half of those exports come from outside the M25. So the relationship between London and the regions and nations and the rest of the British family of financial centres is, as Rupert said, symbiotic. The expertise that sits in financial hubs across all of those centres strengthens the UK's overall attractiveness as a world-leading centre of finance. Not only is it an engine for growth which drives innovation and productivity across the whole of the economy, it also strengthens the UK's soft power and its influence abroad. And Guernsey, one of the most integral parts of the British family of Crown dependencies and overseas territories, is an added string to the bow of the UK's financial and professional services offer. While small in geography, I do not need to tell the people in this room that Guernsey punches well above its weight in terms of influence and in terms of its contribution to the wider ecosystem, both within the British family and globally. As a vibrant financial hub in its own right, annually, Guernsey delivers £7 billion of investment returns for UK investors, and UK-based fund managers generate £2 billion worth of fees from Guernsey-based funds. And with these funds increasing their investment into UK assets by 14% a year since 2020, they're also bucking a number of wider trends for foreign direct investment. More broadly, as Rupert pointed out, the £57 billion that the island channels into the UK through private equity, real estate, infrastructure and renewables is economically significant, and it is clear that Guernsey's contribution to driving growth across the British economy cannot be understated. The island's investment also helps to bolster UK competitiveness, fostering innovation, particularly in areas like green and sustainable finance and in fintech. And I always like to point out that the island was the first jurisdiction to launch a green fund kite mark, the Guernsey Green Fund, setting an international benchmark on environmentally sustainable investment. Guernsey's natural capital fund regime is also pioneering the effort to boost investment in biodiversity at a time when that is particularly important. These sectors embody the future of finance. They align investment with global sustainability goals while offering competitive returns. And they are a further example of areas where the British ecosystem can learn from Guernsey, in particular in green and sustainable finance as a key competitive advantage for the British family of financial centres. Similarly, Guernsey's proficiency in carving out its place as a high-quality and agile service provider, one of those elements that improves the whole British family offer, is a model that we would do well to apply here in London and the rest of the UK to our broader thinking on Britain's post-Brexit regulatory framework. And this is especially important Because a proportionate, agile and stable regulatory environment is absolutely essential to enhancing the UK's overall competitiveness and driving growth across the economy. And there have been some positive steps taken on this over the last few years. This has included the Financial Services and Markets Act 2023, which included a new secondary competitiveness and growth objective for the FCA and the PRA, as well as the Edinburgh Reforms and the Mansion House Compact, amongst other initiatives. So now the focus is on ensuring their effective and timely implementation, and this is where our competitive advantage will either gain ground or lose it. And while our competitiveness in this country is about more than just regulation, I do want to focus briefly on the important role that the regulators play, specifically in ensuring that the FCA and the PRA meaningfully and demonstrably apply their new competitiveness and growth objective across their activities. We've made good progress on accountability. We've worked closely with the government on shaping the metrics that the regulators will use to report on their performance against this new objective. And recent research by TheCityUK and Freshfields shows that these will provide world-leading transparency compared to regulators in many other jurisdictions. But we need to make better use of international comparisons and comparators for these to be fully effective. And as an industry, we have welcomed the enthusiasm with which policy statements have been issued by the regulators and roundtables convened, setting out how they intend to operationalise this new objective. But the reality is, aside from assurances and performance data, the lived experience of firms is, of course, much more important. And I have to be frank and say, for the time being at least, there is real cause for concern. If I can point to an example that I'm sure everybody in this room will be familiar with, the FCA's recent proposals on changing how they publicise enforcement investigations. This is one of the first, if not the first, major, far-reaching, cross-ecosystem consultation launched by the FCA since this objective took effect. It is an acid test, and candidly, it is quite hard to see how the new objective has been thought about. In fact, the impact here would be the opposite. Our members strongly feel that the proposals threaten to damage the UK's competitiveness. So while this isn't an issue solely in the hands of the regulators, it is vital that we as a country recognise that investment will inevitably be choked if they do not play their crucial part in helping create and support the conditions for economic growth, a priority for every party going into the general election and a priority for everybody in this room. Getting this right will be fundamental in ensuring the long-term prosperity and success of the UK and the wider British family. And it will be critical to our success as a country as we navigate what is an increasingly unstable and turbulent world. More broadly, underpinning the industry's ability to successfully deliver change and drive growth and competitiveness is the need to move on from what I would call the safetyism mindset that has developed within our regulators, within government, and indeed within society as a whole. Our society's approach towards risk has shifted dramatically in recent decades, to the extent that risk mitigation, which is absolutely right, has too often become an attempt to engineer risk elimination. And while it is crucial to protect customers and manage systemic risks, regulatory policies and the regulatory mindset must be carefully crafted to balance these needs with those of growth and investment. Without risk, there is no growth, no innovation, and no improvement in productivity. As a society, we need to change the question we are asking ourselves from how do we stop things going wrong to how do we help things go right. And without this new strategic approach to growth and investment, we face a lack of long-term savings and investments that will be required to meet the demands of pensions, healthcare, and the other needs that everybody in this room will be so familiar with and that our industry is a vital part of the answer to. So we have to have a national conversation about how we consider the trade-offs between risk and growth. This balance will be essential for sustainable economic growth and to provide satisfactory returns on savings and investments for individuals. One critical area of focus for our industry, in partnership with the regulators and government, must be doing more to facilitate opportunities for retail investors in UK equities. Too few of our citizens are benefiting from share ownership and from the long-term returns that this can offer. This particular issue presents us with a dual risk: the inherent risks of investing, together with the risks of not investing enough. Bolstering UK capital markets and boosting UK investment in equities is just one piece of the competitiveness puzzle, but it is a vital one. So with a general election on the horizon in the UK, as well as many elections taking place around the world, which I'm sure will be the topic of conversations today, and with the ongoing geopolitical and economic conditions in which we are operating, communicating and then delivering the enabling growth of this industry will be absolutely essential. So we must continue to shape the regulatory and the political environment in order to maintain the British family's position as a world-leading set of international financial centres. So our enduring partnership with Guernsey is therefore more important than ever as we look to address these challenges and take full advantage of the opportunities. As we navigate these complex times, marked by change and uncertainty, our shared commitment to fostering a productive, innovative financial and related professional services industry is vital. We must leverage Guernsey's strengths and our national capabilities to propel forward-thinking strategies that drive sustainable growth, and by doing so, we ensure that the UK continues to thrive as a premier global financial centre, fostering economic prosperity for generations to come. Thank you very much.